Let's face it, our vision is extremely important. And when we are creating a new piece or project, I know we think of who will be reading what we are putting together. In other words, a political piece is going to potential voters. We know that. A direct mail furniture piece to, again, potential voters. Or a retail piece, again, going to potential buyers. And we know that. But does anyone think more about a group of another potential buyers or voters, etc.? What I'm driving at here is people with disabilities, and vision impairment is one of those disabilities. Do creators of their projects ever think about how to reach those who have vision issues? I mean, they are still buyers, voters, etc. There are other disabilities, but for this episode, I'm focusing strictly on vision disabilities. Hi, I'm Jim Kohler, Sylvamo's paper professor, to talk about how print for people with vision disabilities can spark creativity. And as Steve Jobs once said, think different. Did you know that more than 6 million Americans have some form of learning or reading disability? And more than 12 million Americans 40 years or older suffer from some degree of visual impairment. You know, considering accessibility in terms of colors, fonts, and even digital integrations, these things can help marketers connect with a larger audience and think outside the box about the most effective way to marry form and function. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, these are the foundations of our educational system. And the basis for your child or us as adults needs to succeed in life. And functional vision affects them all. Think about it. As we age, we reach for those reading glasses more and more, as type fonts seem to get smaller with each birthday. Who knew a 12-point font could look so much like a 9-point? Let's face it, we've come a long way in terms of digital accessibility standards. While assisted reading programs for the vision impaired are really common, 74% of working-age vision impaired individuals are unemployed, and they require some form of disability income benefits, which can make access to the right technology really challenging. This is why accessibility in print is critical to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table, and why paper provides a bigger sandbox for you to play in. Okay, so knowing all that, designing printed pieces for those who are visually impaired is a topic that should really be discussed more frequently to bring awareness to those it really affects. As we are working towards a more diverse and inclusive world, we must work on including everyone. In the future, it would be really great to see more companies creating printed pieces for those who are visually impaired, and begin including them in any print campaign. You know, companies can actually use Braille, QR codes, or specific colors to reach a larger audience that has been long forgotten. So how do you build a print piece where accessibility and creativity thrive? Whether it's contrast in colors, font adjustments, or unique finishing for a specific tactile experience, there are a handful of components marketers can incorporate to help increase the accessibility of their print campaigns. There are several things you can do, such as consider contrast in the piece. Color is critical in effective design, but relying too much on subtle differences in color can hamper your accessibility efforts. You know, colorblind people may have trouble distinguishing between shades, so a high contrast between the background and text is key. Light lettering, such as white or a light yellow, on a dark background may be easier to read than black lettering on a white or light yellow background. The Google Chrome extension, and I love this name, ColorZilla, is an easy-to-use tool to identify background and foreground in your contrasting color scheme. You know, another thing we can do is put text to work. This doesn't mean letting loose with font styles. In fact, it's best to stick to common font types such as Helvetica or Arial. And it's also important to be conscious of kerning, as letters that touch can be difficult to distinguish. Instead of relying on color for headlines or sections, use bolder text or symbols such as asterisks to draw attention and guide the reader through the piece. You can also use directional language such as Learn more at the bottom of the page. To replace design flourishes. Some of the tips you can use with text is to avoid decorative fonts or use them sparingly. Use bold type because the thickness of the letters makes the print more legible for those with vision issues. Also, avoid using italics or all capital letters. Both of these forms of print make it more difficult to differentiate among letters. The last is, if you really don't need graphics, don't use them. You really need a clear and organized hierarchy of information that is important to effectively convey ideas to a broad audience. This means putting the most valuable information at the top of the piece, such as a call to action, dates, time of events, addresses, and more. Also, it's important to be purposeful with headings and print them in order of decreasing size based on the value of information. Now, the other big important part, you knew it was coming, paper. Yes, paper can have a big impact with those with visual impairments. For example, the brightness of your paper stock is key in creating greater degrees of color contrast. Accent Opaque provides 97 brightness for superior accessibility with your print project. Extremely glossy paper can be difficult to read for the visually impaired, so go with a matte or an uncoated stock if possible. Also, a more sturdy stock may be required to integrate braille or other kinds of tactile finishes to guide those with visual impairments through your piece. Well, I understand these tips may not work for every project, but I hope they at least give you some ideas on how to reach another group often left out, those being the visually impaired. Now, something new and different. Sylvamo now has a fantastic app for both the Apple iOS and Android systems. Now, with the app, you can search Sylvamo papers and browse the hundreds of Sylvamo paper products, leverage out the dynamic paper calculator, even unlock augmented reality contact, and even better, contact customer support, and more with this fantastic app. This app gives you access to all the latest information on all Sylvamo papers, with new products and specification changes automatically updated every time you launch the application. Just download it from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. So now you can be anywhere in the world and still be in contact with Sylvamo papers. You know, as Steve Jobs used to say in his keynotes, one more thing. The latest Apollo and Andy children's book is out. This book is fantastic. To get the book, click on the QR code on the screen, which will take you to a special Accent Opaque website, where you can order it, free of course. It also contains augmented reality, and this is where the new Sylvamo paper app comes in. Kids will get a kick out of it with the AR and even learn something to boot. The book was printed inkjet on Accent Opaque 70-pound super smooth with image lock technology. The cover was printed on a 100-pound Accent super smooth. So this is an excellent showcase on how well Accent prints with inkjet. You will clearly think this was printed using high-quality standard print technology, such as offset. Well, with all that, I'm Jim Kohler, Sylvamo Papers Professor. And don't forget, if you haven't, subscribe and click on the bell so you'll get notifications of all the latest episodes that are out. Now, I surely hope to see you in the next episode.